Hello and welcome to Maxim Foods Inside Track. Another interesting fortnight in dairy. I guess general sentiment of the Asia Pacific region over the last 6 weeks is a bearish market, with China with their COVID zero policy really sitting out, or with questionable demand. So we've seen a lot of sentiment around that where people are believing that the market will continue to come off. So last night's GDT was an interesting result because we saw some positive results and some uplift in some of the commodities. Let's check them out now. One of the anomalies last night on the GDT was AMF falling back nearly 10%. So yeah, we're sort of questioning that result. There's still not a lot of product around in Australia and NZ, or globally in fact. So yeah, it is interesting to look at. Demand was very slow, of course, which drove that number down. But yeah, we still see a relatively firmish outlook on AMF. Having a look at full cream milk powder. So as expected, last night we saw a decline in the GDT of about 3.5%. On a positive note, we saw that most regions were actively buying, including China. So yeah, demand has picked up a bit more than what was anticipated. On the supply side, New Zealand and South Island have been experiencing a lot of rain. So supply, or the season, may not have kicked off as best as it should in the New Zealand region, so that might drive some increased demand if supply continues to wane for new season. Having a look at skim milk powder now, probably the biggest surprise last night on the GDT was a flat result on skim. In fact, it was up a little bit. So some reasonable demand out of the EU, where milk powder is tightening in supply. Across all the other markets, generally active on skim. China were down on skim. However, yeah, after those last sort of 2 months of steep decline in commodity skim, we're seeing it sort of flatten out a bit. So it is interesting to see how the next 3 to 4 months will pan out, but we'd probably assume that this might be the floor. Moving across to cheese, so in the US we see pricing drift off a little bit of an imbalance there with a bit lower demand and higher supply. In the EU, pricing remains quite buoyant, supply is very tight, so we shouldn't see any sort of drift away with pricing for that region. Having a look at Australia and New Zealand cheese, yeah, demand still seems relatively high. There's been a lot of negative press around the macroeconomic factors of Australia and New Zealand's economy, but yeah, demand for retail and food service still remain quite strong, which is positive. Supply is steady and will no doubt increase over the new season. However, yeah, we see quite a finely balanced Australian-New Zealand cheddar market for the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at whey powder, starting with sweet whey powder, yeah, demand has been relatively quiet. Chinese feed market has been sitting out for the last 4 to 6 weeks, and general demand globally has drifted off. Supply has been quite healthy as well, so those dynamics contributing to a drift off in price. Probably won't see a lot of activity upwards over the next 3 to 6 months on whey. So in summary, globally, demand's still relatively flat. Supply, however, is also down globally. New Zealand not off to the best start of the season. Chinese demand is still the big question mark, so we're in for an interesting 3 to 6 months. Thanks again for listening to Maxim Foods Inside Track. We'll see you next fortnight.